In November 2006, American climbers Christine Boskoff and her climbing partner Charlie Fowler were climbing deep in a remote mountain valley in China. They were attempting a new route on Genyen, a 6,000 meters beautiful sacred peak. Sadly, they were killed by a deadly avalanche. Fowler's body was found a month and a half later, while it took searchers more than 7 months to find and retrieve the body of Boskoff. In this video, I'll discuss the life story of Christine Boskoff and her mountaineering achievements. Later in the video, her tragic ascent will be discussed at length as well. Christine Boskoff was born on the 7th of September 1967 in Appleton, Wisconsin. She spent her childhood years keeping up with her 3 older brothers. In high school, she excelled in math, science, and sports. She graduated from Appleton East High School in 1985. After high school, Boskoff attended the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, where she was one of few female engineering students. After graduation in electrical engineering in May 1991, she was hired by Lockheed Aeronautical Systems in Atlanta, Georgia at the age of 24. At Lockheed Aeronautical Systems, she was the team leader for a group that designed software for a lighted control display for C-130J, a large military cargo plane. She also owned her pilot license. Christine Boskoff used to climb the walls at Lockheed. She liked the work but was disturbed by the long-term prospect of the job. A 2-day rock climbing course taken during the summer of 1992 gave her an epiphany of sorts. When she climbed to the top, she just knew that this was what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. She sensed she could travel, explore, and satiate a taste for adventure through climbing. She went back to Lockheed to make ends meet, but devoted her free time to climbing. Within a very short time, she was climbing technical high-altitude peaks. At Lockheed, she met Keith Boskoff, an experienced climber and successful architect 15 years her senior. Keith took her on a trip to Ecuador, where they climbed the country's high-altitude volcanoes. She was smitten both with the men and the mountains. In short, Christine quitted her job and committed to climbing full-time. In 1994, Christine and Keith Boskoff married in Pangboche, a speck on the main route to Everest Base Camp in Nepal. True to their mountaineering spirit, they climbed Amadablam days before the ceremony was performed by a lama from a local monastery. The entire village attended the service, which included a feast. Her first major summit was the Rigi, 17,000 feet, in the Bolivian Andes. After this success, she began organizing climbing expeditions to Africa, Mexico, Europe, and North America. In 1994, she made her first trip to Asia and climbed Amadablam in Nepal. Christine's parents were not too comfortable with their daughter's change in career. Her father had a problem with it. It really upset him. He cut out climbing accident articles. They wanted her to settle down and have kids, the Wisconsin thing. But Boskoff was never happier than when climbing, and she had no intention of quitting. While she embraced the humility and modesty her parents taught, she didn't aspire to make a family just like her own. Her mother didn't work. It was old-fashioned that way. Christine made sure that didn't happen to her. She focused on the business, wanting to both guide clients and establish herself as one of the top female climbers on the planet. Christine Boskoff met Scott Fisher in Pakistan, where he was leading a 1995 expedition of Broad Peak. Unbeknownst to her, she would take over the leadership of Mountain Madness 2 years later, after Scott died on Everest. A storm on Broad Peak forced them to spend 4 days together, and they became fast friends. Broad Peak was her first 8,000-meter mountain. She reached the summit on the 13th of August 1995. The following year, in September 1996, she successfully climbed Cho Oyu, the sixth highest mountain in the world. In 1997, Christine Boskoff became the first woman from North America to reach the summit of Lhotse via the west face, the fourth highest mountain in the world. She reached the summit with her husband on the 26th of May 1997. Christine Boskoff's life was impacted by the much chronicled tragic events of the 1996 storm on Everest that took the lives of 8 climbers. One of the climbers who perished, Scott Fisher, was the owner of Seattle-based guiding company Mountain Madness. With its proximity to the Cascades, Olympics, and Alaska's Mount Denali, Seattle has become America's alpine center. Fisher played a significant role in building Seattle's climbing community. Boskoff met him in 1995 on Broad Peak, her first 8,000-meter summit. After Fisher's death, Christine and Keith Boskoff purchased Mountain Madness, shifting Boskoff's relationship with mountaineering from personal to professional. Scott's legacy was as important to the Boskoff as climbing. Christine Boskoff continued to run Mountain Madness, still considered one of the leading mountaineering schools and international guide services in America. The company blossomed under her leadership, and it allowed her to further her own dreams along with the dreams of her clients. In the summer of 1998, Christine attempted Makalu, the fifth highest mountain in the world, but failed to summit. Then, in 1999, just as Mountain Madness was beginning to turn around, Keith Boskoff died unexpectedly. It was a tragic death, and it shook Christine to her core. His death changed her in profound and positive ways, but it required tremendous introspection. Keith's death left Christine to run Mountain Madness on her own. She led expedition for about 3 months that year and planned to rank in the year 2000 on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro with a group of climbing clients. Christine and Keith Boskoff had climbed some of the world's highest peaks together. Yet, it were the people along the road who had touched them the most. The Bolivians, Nepalese, Pakistanis, Tanzanians, Tibetans. That same year, in 1999, Christine climbed Gasherbrum II, the 13th highest mountain in the world. She reached the summit via the West Ridge on the 19th of August 1999. Next year, in 2000, she led a successful expedition to the summit of Mount Everest by the south side. Later, in October 2000, she successfully climbed Shishapangma by the British route on the southwest face. It was her sixth 8,000-meter summit, the most by any female climber alive that time. During the summer of 2002, she embarked on her 10th expedition to an 8,000-meter mountain, and along with climbing partner Cho Fowler, made a self-supported alpine-style bed on the south-southeast spur of K2. Ultimately, a season of poor weather and deep snow kept the two below 6,900 meters. K2 was an aggravating experience for Boskoff. She was focused on summiting, and the liaison officer forced her to leave the mountain in August as a good weather window was settling in. She hated the militaristic, rule-by-decree system. In the free monsoon of 2003, Christine Boskoff joined forces with Andrew Locke from Australia to make a lightweight attempt on Kanchenjunga, the third highest mountain in the world. Climbing without Sherpas or auxiliary oxygen, they found the mountain to be a significant challenge, and Christine decided to head home. Andrew Locke also turned around due to unsafe conditions. Boskoff also climbed 6 of the 7 summits: Aconcagua, Carsten's Pyramid, Elbrus, Everest, Kilimanjaro, and Vinson Massif. Christine mainly avoided corporate sponsorship for her expeditions, choosing to climb without the pressure of media and corporate attention. In her later years, she turned her climbing efforts to first ascent of lower, lesser-known peaks in Asia. She started to lose the appeal for 8,000-meter peaks. She really loved climbing in China and doing first ascents over there and exploring the valleys. Boskoff preferred to explore the unnamed mountains of southwestern China. She was also drawn to the culture of that region. She wanted to climb at lower elevations and climb harder, more technical routes, and she liked to be the first and not the 256th. Christine Boskoff and her climbing partner, Cho Oyu, had been in China for almost 10 months in 2006. They had been on expedition since autumn and had made the first ascent of the often attempted Yellow Peak in early October. In November 2006, they began a new climb up Genyen Peak, 6,204 meters, 20,354 feet, in the Sichuan province of China. After sending an email on the 8th of November 2006, they did not send any further communications and missed a previously arranged meeting with their driver scheduled for November 24. They were reported missing after they failed to return to the United States on December 4 as planned. Search efforts were complicated because they did not leave detailed plans, and searchers initially did not know which province in southwestern China to check. In making things even more difficult, the People's Liberation Army in China did an initial search of the Genyen region and incorrectly reported there was no sign of the couple. On the 12th of December, the Fowler Boskoff Search Committee, FBSC, was formed in Telluride, Colorado, to coordinate the search efforts for the missing climbers. The FBSC established a funding goal of $75,000 to execute all elements of the search. The FBSC assembled information from Fowler and Boskoff's lost email communications with friends and family, and from Fowler's computer, which had been left behind with a business partner. Based on this information, the FBSC has narrowed the search for the pair to 2 areas: either on or below a remote, unclimbed 6,509-meter mountain that Fowler had identified as a possible objective near the town of Diken in Yunnan Province, China, or near the towns of Litang and Batang in Sichuan Province. On the 15th of December, the Fowler Boskoff Search Committee enlisted 2 China-based field managers to assist in the search, and 4 teams searched for Boskoff and Fowler in the 2 locations mentioned earlier. In Diken, teams checked both entrance points to unnamed peak 6,509 meters. In Batang, teams coordinated their search with local government authorities. On the 18th of December, the field manager in Chengdu reported that 2 foreigners were sighted about a month ago in a village near Yangmolong Peak north of Batang. A search team in the area was directed to focus their efforts to tracking down more information on that report. No records of the missing pair was discovered in hotels, but one possible sighting was reported from November in a local restaurant. In Litong County, there was a confirmed sighting of Boskoff and Fowler in an internet cafe around the time of a November 8 email to friends in the United States. 2 unconfirmed sightings of the pair between November 15 and 20 were also reported. A driver stated that Boskoff had inquired about cars to Genyen in November. A team was also researched rumors of a car accident on the Lhotse road in Genyen County north of Lhotse. Boskoff had also sighted the monasteries at the base of Genyen peak, so searchers focused their search there with the help of a high monk. In October 2006, 2 New Zealanders were robbed at knife point in the Genyen area. They did not resist, but their interpreter was injured. The chief of Zongla, the last village before Genyen, was contacted but said that no climbers had been known to go recently to Genyen. The Sichuan Mountaineering and the Genyen Mountaineering Association were also contacted, but as no climbers had registered for a climbing permit. China's Public Security Bureau, checking lodging records and bus depots, and questioned drivers in Sichuan and Yunnan for any sighting of the fair while en route to the mountains. On the 18th of December 2006, the chief of the Consular Section U.S. Consulate General in Chengdu, China, reported that the governments of Yunnan and Sichuan provinces and the Tibetan autonomous regions are officially working on the Fowler Boskoff case. On the 19th of December, a concerted effort to gather politically weighted support for the search in hopes of elevating awareness at high levels within China was mounted from boat Telluride in Seattle. On the 20th of December, one of the search teams in Lhotse found a note in a visitor book at a restaurant. Great food and people. Enjoyed the food. The mountains around Yading are awesome. Countryside remind us of home. We'll be back. Chris Boskoff and Cho Oyu Fowler, Norwood, Colorado. A reward was set up in the amount of 30,000 RMB, approximately $4,000 for information leading to the whereabouts of Boskoff and Fowler. On the 26th of December, a search team visited the Lengo Monastery and confirmed that Boskoff and Fowler were stopped in on November 12, 2006. The monks were certain of the date because of a festival that occurred that day. They also confirmed that Boskoff and Fowler came a few minutes from the monastery that night. The fair told the monks that they planned to travel north of the monastery and probably return for a visit in 4 days. The monks said they had not seen any people go north of the monastery since Boskoff and Fowler's visit. They also reported that it had snowed 3 to 5 centimeters during the festival and continued to snow through November 14 for a total of 23 centimeters. The searchers also found a driver who dropped the fare up in the town of Lamaya near the Tibet border on November 11. The pair told him they planned to climb the Genyen peak and then meet him on the 24th of November to pick up their luggage, but didn't show up, the driver reported. The search was then concentrated at Genyen Peak north of the Lengo Monastery. On the 27th of December 2006, the body of Cho Oyu Fowler, mostly buried in the snow, was spotted by a Chinese member of one of the field search teams. It appeared probable that the cause of death was an avalanche. Cho Oyu was not wearing a harness, nor was he roped. He was wearing crampons and a large pack. The location was at an approximate altitude of 5,300 meters, 17,388 feet, 3 hours above Lengo Monastery in the Genyen region. Fowler's body was brought down to Lengo Monastery and cremated. 2 Chinese military helicopters aborted the search for Christine Boskoff due to bad weather. The search was going on at the request of U.S. Embassy. The ground search did not find any sign of Boskoff. It was believed that the 2 climbers used ropes during the ascent. or might have been resting in the same tent when an avalanche occurred. On the 29th of December 2006, dangerous conditions in the area forced search teams to abandon the search for Boskoff until the spring season next year. The Fowler Boskoff Search Committee concurred, halting the search. Search attempts were resumed in June 2007, but were unsuccessful because there was clearly too much snow. Boskoff's body was discovered on the 3rd of July, almost 7 months after she and Fowler were reported missing. Her camera and phosphors were nearby, at the same elevation as where Fowler had been found. Recovery effort then was hampered by poor weather and rockfall dangers. The search teams covered the body with stones for preservation and protection from the elements. Recovery effort resumed for Boskoff's body once the weather condition improved and the rockfall hazards lessened. In August 2007, Boskoff's body was brought down from the mountain. When conditions improved for a 15-man recovery team to climb the rocky terrain and retrieve her. Boskoff's body was moved to the Lengo Monastery, the Buddhist retreat where she and Fowler were last seen alive by the monks. Her body was cremated in a Buddhist ceremony to release her spirit. The U.S. Consulate took responsibility for her ashes and personal belongings. They arrived in Seattle and from there taken to her native Wisconsin, where her mother, Joyce Bild, friends and relatives held a memorial service. The ashes were then buried in the family plot in Sheboygan, next to her father. Fowler's sister, Jenny Fowler Hicks, brought some of her brother's ashes to Sheboygan as well, so the pair, who had been involved for some time, remained together. Several different teams of Chinese SAR climbers, coordinated by American Cho Oyu, funded by Mountain Madness, and the Fowler Boskoff Search Committee from Colorado were responsible for the recoveries of both bodies. Boskoff's mother had got roses and a teddy bear for her birthday, which Boskoff had pre-ordered. Bill never heard from her daughter again. Her worry only increased with time and peaked on the 4th of December when Boskoff and Fowler failed to return to Colorado on their scheduled flight. Boskoff and Fowler's deaths are believed to be the result of a deadly avalanche on the mountain. They were there by choice, climbing deep in a remote mountain valley, attempting a new route on Genyen, a beautiful sacred peak described as a glacier-clad giant among a sea of proud rock spires. In a 2002 interview, Boskoff hinted that she knew dying while climbing was a possibility. She said, "I think the key, at least in my life, is living the moment. It's right now. And it's not, I should have done this and I should have done that. Because when you are dead, you are dead. Life is really for the living. You can't bring your life with you when you die. No matter how many medals you won and how many peaks you climb, it's not going to mean anything to you when you are 6 feet under." A room to read memorial fund was set up in her name to benefit school children in Nepal. Boskoff formerly served as a board member of the non-profit organization. The fund supports school children in Nepal by establishing schools, libraries, and scholarship for girls throughout the country. Boskoff worked with the Central Asia Institute as well, an organization in Bozeman, Montana that promotes and supports community-based education, primarily in Pakistan and Afghanistan, by building schools, training teachers, and funding scholarships. She lived in Seattle, Washington, and Norwood, Colorado. Her extensive climbing resume includes the summits of 6 of the world's 14 highest peaks: Everest twice, Lhotse, Cho Oyu twice, Bertwig, Gasherbrum II, and Shishapangma. K2 had always been something she wanted to climb. She was very much influenced by Wanda Rutkiewicz. She was the only American woman alive to have reached the summit of 6 8,000-meter peaks. She also had an extensive record of unexplored first ascents, primarily in Tibet. Christine was always happy to be climbing the mountains and traveling to many countries all over the world. She especially loved Nepal and especially the children there. She wanted them all to have a good education and was interested in helping them build schools. Christine was inspirational for many reasons: her big feat climbing, her business leadership, her positive attitude, but maybe the most inspirational thing about her was her all-in approach to life and her decision to follow her dreams. She left a well-paying job as an aeronautical engineer to take a chance in a company. That gusty move led her to the highest peaks of the globe and offered her a vehicle with which to share her passion. What she left behind for all is mountain madness and an appeal to get out there and live back. Christine loved skiing in the Colorado mountains. She was also a pilot during her college days. She is survived by her mother, Joyce Feld, her three brothers, David Feld, Thomas Feld, and Paul Feld, her nephew and four nieces, her uncle John, and many other relatives and friends. To commemorate Christine Boskoff and Charlie Fowler, the U.S. Congress in 2019 christened two unnamed peaks in the Wilson Range and San Juan Mountains in Colorado as Fowler and Boskoff Peaks. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video and are new here, please consider subscribing to the channel for more such videos to come in the future.